Hey everybody, welcome to the I Am Podcast YouTube channel.
Make sure to tap the bell, subscribe, and comment down below.
Hey everybody,
Welcome back.
we are very excited in following the story of Lorraine's surrogacy journey. You heard us talk to her children, and we're talking to her surrogate baby, who's not a baby anymore. And so we wanted to talk to the woman who started it all herself, Miss Lorraine. So I know Lorraine is no stranger to us here on the podcast, so we don't need to keep our intro going on too long. But Lorraine had a really big trip not long ago, and so we wanted to talk about that and talk about her surrogacy and specific.
Yeah. Hey, ladies. Nice to see you on camera again.
Yeah.
Really love coming to your podcast. You guys are definitely my travel trip favorite for listening as I drive. So thank you. Oh, yeah. So I just made it back from Australia, and it was one heck of a plane ride to get to the west side of Australia. So it was an extra plane ride after the 15 hours. But we made it there in one piece, and I got to see Isabel, who's my surrogate baby, who's not so much a baby anymore, graduate from high school. And it was a really surreal moment. I got to see her when she was 7, and that was really special. I went back to see her when she was 14. She was a little awkward, like she was like, oh, I don't know. She was 14, right? Like, you're weird. This is weird. I don't know. And then at 18, she's come into her own.
Right.
And she is this incredible young adult who is now on the brink of anything.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's what hit me was she really has an open book in front of her. Like, I knew when I was doing the process that we're going to do an embryo transfer, we're going to do medication, like everything had a schedule. The pregnancy is going to happen and you have a schedule. You know exactly what's coming up, your glucose checks, your ultrasounds and all that stuff. And then when the baby's born and they go home, again, that's scheduled. And then that she's going to grow up, she's going to go to school, she's going to, do all these new firsts. And now there's this blank slate of what is she going to do next?
Yeah, she has her whole
Is
life.
she going to marry? Is she not going to marry? Is she going to have children, not have children? Is she going to, go to university? Is she going to, travel? Like all these really incredible new adventures in front of her. And I realized we have no idea where it's going to go. And it was kind of inspiring. It was magical. It was bizarre to know that she is on a brand new adventure. I didn't quite hit me like it did with my kids.
Right. So let's back this up just a little bit for the people who don't know, who are tuning in for the first time, don't necessarily know your story. Let's take this back to the beginning. So how did you meet her intended parents? How did that go for you?
Oh gosh, it was actually really funny. I brought the faxed copy that was mailed to me. So we're talking old school here, no emails, no. So it was a faxed photo that they took a photocopy of. So the pictures and images were like a shadow of a nose and lips, and like you couldn't really see their face. So they sent a letter off, and I was sent 14 letters from different intended parents, and I read them over, and it was really hard. I've used this phrase before. I felt like a demigod. I had to say yes to one and no to 13 others. And I picked them, and they just kind of hit me right. I always wanted to be a teacher. She was a teacher. They were farmers. I lived in a farming community. And so it just felt right. And they were the ones that I picked. And so then we connected and went to Toronto and did the screening. I got to meet them. We did the transfer. Yeah.
What was it like at that time, Lorraine? Like, were you talking to them on the phone lots, or like, were you guys emailing then?
Emails. So because of course the time difference too, I was a nerd and I'd be up at like 5 a.m. because I'd be like checking my emails to see if I got a new email in. And we did talk on the phone, but not as often, right? Like there isn't the phone plans that there is now. And we didn't have FaceTime and we didn't have social media. So Yeah, it was just a really different time. We had Facebook, but not really.
Right. It wasn't
Like it
like
was
it
sort
is
of
now.
there,
Yeah.
but not there. And we just a lot of emails, a lot of really thinking out all your thoughts and sending them over.
That's so cool. Like a pen pal.
Yes, yes. And I actually kept every single communication we had between the two of us. And
Oh.
even though sometimes we talk on the phone, I'd reiterate it back into an email because I actually printed it all off and created a memory book for them.
Oh, that's beautiful, Lorraine.
Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I got rid of my scrapbooking kit after that because I realized that was not my jam.
So what was meeting them at screening like?
It was actually quite funny. We met at a restaurant, and I remember Warwick, the dad, he's like, so if you don't want to meet in person, if you're too shy, we can like wave at each other across the room. And me being like no filter, I was like, if you're gonna see me naked at delivery, I think we better meet. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And then we just hit it off. It's this funny forced friendship. It's like a blind date.
Right.
Yeah.
You're you know that you're why you're all there. You're there to get to know each other. It's not a casual introduction. It is an actual dating experience.
Right.
But I'm dating a married couple, and I was married at the time, and they were dating us. It was weird, but it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're my new best friend.
Did you
Let's
go by
talk.
yourself, Lorraine, or did you take someone with you?
I actually went by myself.
Nice.
My husband stayed home with the kids. They were little. They were only four, like 3 and 4 or 5,
Right.
somewhere around there.
The best part is your kids just said they were like 6 and 8.
No, they were like 4 and 6 when I had her,
That's
I think.
hilarious.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, we were like 7, 8.
I
Yeah.
apparently I'm not mathing and neither are they. But that's okay. One day I'll explain to you how well they know their birthdays when we went across the border and they gave the wrong dates. And I thought I was going to be arrested and strip search. So yeah, don't trust them on that part.
That's okay. I told everyone Maria was a year older than she is last year.
Actually, 2.
2 years old, yeah.
Oh,
It's
snap.
fine.
So you went by yourself. And
Yeah,
actually, also, you might want to talk to your kids because they also said they went to Victoria.
they did come to me with Victoria, but they were blending it up a little bit because at that point it was me supporting another surrogate and meeting clients.
Oh, yeah, no, they were
Yeah.
like, we went to my
So
mom.
my
We went.
actual surrogacy for myself
Right.
before I opened up anew, no, they did not come with me, but they did come with me to meet other clients because I think they're remembering going and seeing some whales. We all went on a big whale watching tour together.
Oh, cool. That's
So
funny.
they did travel with me when I went to Victoria often, actually, for oh, you know what? I know what they're thinking of. After my successful journey with Isabel, I actually did try it multiple times afterwards. I did do 4 other transfers,
Right.
and one of them was in Victoria and it didn't work. So, yes, they did
Um,
come with me for my journey in Victoria.
right.
That one just wasn't successful. The one that was successful was in Toronto.
Oh, okay.
Well, you guys
Yeah,
might
so
have to like fact check each other's
Yeah.
episodes here.
we should have got our story straight before we started this.
That's funny.
I love
So,
it.
what, like, how long was it for you after your screening that you went for transfer? Like, was it the
Actually,
same as
it
what it is
was
now?
pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like we delivered within 13 months of meeting. Like,
That's fast.
yeah.
Wow.
So as I was there for screening, he goes, well, actually, you're at the perfect time. So this particular clinic at ReproMed, they did Lupron shots. So it happened to be the donor and everything was lined up. And this was the time and day when they were doing fresh transfers.
Right.
So they weren't freezing embryos. So you had to line up with the egg donor and cycle together, which is a lot more challenging. And it just happened to be the day I was there. So I said, well, then stab me. Let's go. Like, give me the Lupron. Like, I'm like shucking my pants. I'm like, come on. And he's like, oh, okay, okay. So we did.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was August. And then we ended up transferring in November because there was a complication with the donor. We needed to wait an extra month. So
Okay.
November was our transfer.
And did they come back for the transfer, or did you do that by yourself?
I actually went by myself as well for that. And so they stayed home in Australia. It was too far, and I was fine because we got to meet at screening, and he was there to do a sperm deposit. So it worked out really well to meet during screening. And then I did the transfer by myself, and then I went home.
So
Very
you
cool.
didn't meet
Then
them again. So they came for screening, but then you didn't meet them again until you gave birth. Hey.
actually, and Lindsay, the intended mom, came out with her best friend, Sarah, who I actually got to see and visit with when I was there. We went over to their house for dinner. They came down for the ultrasound. And so
Oh,
that's
cool.
when they got to experience actually snow for the very first time. I remember pulling out all this winter gear and they're like, it can't be that cold. I'm like, trust me, layers,
Yeah.
layers, layers. And so, yeah, we took them up to Mount Baker.
Okay. So, um, then they came back again for when you were ready to give birth?
That's right.
Right.
They both came. So Lindsay and Warwick came first screening, leave a deposit, just Lindsay and her friend Sarah for ultrasound, and then they both came for the birth. And then Warwick actually had to go back because he's a farmer. And at the time they were doing dairy cattle, and you guys know dairy cattle is very hands-on.
Yeah.
And so he left, had to leave a little bit early after the birth
Oh, but
and
he
go
was
home.
there for the birth.
Oh, yes, he was there 100% for the birth. It was quite funny because I had this great idea of wearing a tank top. I was going to be like all demure and like presentable. No, birth has its own plans, and I ended up in the tub. I was hot. They were blowing fans on me. I was having back labor, so my husband at the time was punching into my lower back. Warwick was like, I don't want to see anything. Like I told him, I don't want you to be at my feet. They got shoved to the feet. So they were all nervous that I was going to be upset. And I'm like, look, the garbage man is there and he promises to take this baby out. I'm good. Like, don't worry about it.
And then following the birth,
What
over
was
the
the
last?
birth like though?
Oh yeah.
The birth was really unique for me. So my two children were actually C-section. And I had to kind of fight for the opportunity to try for VBAC, which isn't common. You can usually do one C-section and then they really encourage two. And so I sought out a high risk doctor who was willing to work with me. We talked about the risks, we talked about precautions like I was going to have a capped IV. I was going to stay 2 weeks near the hospital because I lived in a rural town of Chilliwack, which was a lower mainland, an hour and a half from Vancouver. And so he wanted me to not have to drive that distance. So we stayed close by. And we did capped IV. He just monitored me and he said, we have a 24-hour anesthesiologist, 11 operating rooms. You're in the best place. So we did. We went super natural, way more natural than I planned. I wanted to be one of those women that were like, oh, I think I'm in labor, and they have all these great drugs in them and look amazing afterwards and you hate them for it. I wanted to be one of those women and I did not. Did not.
Ripping her
But
tank
But
top off.
yeah, just
but
sweaty,
you got
wet,
your
in and
VBAC
out of the hot tub.
though.
I did have a doula with me and she was very empowering. We're still friends. She moved way back to New Zealand, but I found out she's moved back to Canada, so I'll get to see her again. But it was a really empowering experience. I didn't expect it. They didn't know what to do, but that core memory of them seeing them hold their baby for the first time, the sweat, the tears, it, Lindsay's makeup running down her face, the snot, the everything, that really ugly cry was the most magical, powerful moment. And I was like, I did that. And they got to present her to me because I asked them to be the one to show her to me,
Right.
and introduce that she was a girl because that was a surprise.
Oh, cool.
And I just so empowering. And then I did actually get to nurse her for the first 24 hours for the colostrum. And her and I actually at this visit had a really honest conversation about my breastfeeding Isabel.
Right.
It wasn't super common, isn't still very super common right now. And I talked to her about, did I overstep? Did I ever make you feel uncomfortable? Because it's always kind of weighed on my mind. And she said, no, like being a farmer's wife, not only do I know how important the colostrum is, you were giving her a gift. Like I didn't
Yeah.
feel that way. And that was a worry that I had been carrying with me for 18 years,
Right.
that I somehow might have overstepped that boundary in that moment. Um, but it wasn't. And for me, it was memory lane. Like there's always this big fear that surrogates are going to feel like it's their baby or that they're going to be too attached. For me, it was like, oh my gosh, I remember when my kids did this. And I felt like I was a little more professional because my two were terrible as newborns. And Isabel was so easy in comparison that, getting her to latch properly and all that stuff, she just did great.
Right.
I still did the day 3 cry. I don't know if you ladies did your day 3 cry post birth.
Yeah.
Yep, super common, super natural. And, I had friends telling me, oh, you must miss that baby. Maybe it was a mistake. I'm like, no, all these hormones have to leave my body. Thanks very
Yeah.
much. So you're still going to have those happy tears and crying for no reason. And we just got busy, with my own kids. We watched lots of movies while I was recovering. I was gardening in 10 days. I did not do that with my children.
Because you did have just to clarify, you did have your successful VBAC.
I did. I
Yeah.
Yeah.
did. That's why I say way more natural than I wanted. I wanted an epidural. I wanted the good drugs. I wanted to be one of those women that are like, oh, oh yeah, I think I'm having a contraction. No, no,
Oh,
not for
that's funny.
me. I got to have very natural birth, but it was pretty quick. It was 8 hours, and I labored with Alex for over 20 hours. So 8 seemed like a walk in the park in
Yeah.
comparison. I didn't think so in the moment, I have to say. I remember being in the tub, hot water on my back, which was helping, with the bath. And I remember sucking on some ice. And I remember saying, what the F did I just do? Like, why am I doing this? Like here we are. But I do remember very clearly my brain screaming, what the F did you just do?
Yeah.
And and then she was born.
So cool. How long did they stay after she was born?
So actually that's another little segue conversation in there too that we just had. They stayed in Canada for 3 weeks afterwards. But they left fairly quick afterwards for Vancouver because they were really anxious to get the passport going.
Right.
And she said to me, I feel like I missed something with you, actually. She goes, I realized because she ended up carrying her own daughter. They found out 2 weeks before I delivered that she was pregnant. And she'd been trying for 8 years. So, like, they didn't expect to carry on successfully. And then here they are, they're pregnant. And now she's experiencing all these first times. Like I loved it when she told me she stepped in dog poop and she couldn't see it. I
She
was
was
like,
so
yeah.
pregnant.
Or peeing every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like best revenge I could ever have as a surrogate was like,
Yeah.
uh, so they left pretty quick for Vancouver and we did visit, but it was a little bit hard because
Right.
you're going through all those emotional changes. And I just desperately wanted to see them grow. So we talked about that at this visit as well. We had some really beautiful one-on-one, like reflective moments. And I think that's pretty cool that we can do that because one, the raw emotion's not there. We can be a lot more logical, and it was really nice. So I told her yes. I mean, there were some hard moments, but it was really good too that I was really hyper focused on my kids too.
Yeah.
So, and that is a conversation that I have with a lot of new surrogates. I'm like, if you're working with somebody who's domestic to North America, you have more opportunities to see each other, but they tend to go home quicker. And so sometimes that can be really hard. And the flip side is that an international couple needs to stay longer to get their passport and get home. And so it's a smoother transition, but you don't get to see each other as often.
Right. Right.
So it's like, you know, one is smoother, but it's hard. Yeah. So I see a lot of people get together for vacations. And actually, so Caitlin, who was their natural born daughter, because Isabel was with an egg donor and with me as the surrogate, Caitlin is going to be graduating from high school next year. So I've promised to go back because I am all about the equal. And how do you go to one kid's graduation and not go to the other one? So we're actually going to spend some family time together, and Alex and Aiden are going to join us this time, and we're going to see her graduate from school and spend a little mini vacation afterwards all together.
That's so cool. Like what a gift.
Yeah.
What a gift that
Yeah,
you've got to watch not only just your Suro babe, but they have a whole big family now.
they
Like
do.
it's so
They
that's so
do.
cool.
Thinking about it now with this hindsight, Lorraine, is there anything you would tell yourself, reading their profile all those years ago now, like anything you would have done differently or wished you had done or any, like now that you've done all this really cool reflecting?
Hmm. No, you know what? I think we hit it off so well. Like that was something that we both said. We feel like each time we've gotten together, it's like no time has been apart. You can have that friend that's there that will bury a body with you, and you have a friend that you call when you want the hard truth, and you have that friend that you don't talk to often, but it's like no time has passed. That's who she is to me. No time has passed. We even actually, it was kind of fun with Isabel being legal. We all went to some of the wineries and distilleries and we're taste testing some stuff. So we might have got a little silly a couple times during the visit.
That's so
And
cute. You call it
the
getting
girls were
silly.
quite like, like they're getting silly. And I'm like, yes, we
Getting
are.
silly.
I love
I love
that.
that. That's so
Was
funny.
it different? Okay, so if we can take this out if you don't want to talk about this, but like your
Yep.
intended father died,
Yes.
and how has that, like, because this would have been the first visit without him, how
Yes.
has that changed the relationship at all? Do you like, how has that changed the journey now?
It was really challenging because Warwick was a really unique, fun individual. Um, he was a lot of energy and light, and he was the jokester. My relationship was always a little bit closer with Lindsay,
Mm-hmm.
but whenever we got together, he was definitely the fun, energy in the room. The
Right.
jokester and making the quips, and just so not having him there, we talked about it a little bit. We talked about how much we miss him, or some of the funny things that he would do, like hanging out for the first time together just before the birth. We're at the not the hotel. Yeah, we were at a hotel, staying close to the airport, and I asked him. We went into the bathroom and he made a huge mess. And I criticized him like as if I was his girlfriend, wife. And I was like, I had no place to do that. And we joked about how he was a big,
Just a
ball of
big
mess, like a little
personality.
kid with water all over the mirror and the things that he said and how much he'd want to be there. So there were some really emotional moments. And then there was some really thoughtful, it was really nice to be able to reflect on those moments. I think sometimes when people pass away, from what I understand, talking to other people that have lost people, it is really nice to be able to talk about those things because sometimes people avoid the hard,
Oh, most people do. Most people
Yeah.
don't want to talk
right?
about those things,
And I
especially.
wanted to let her know that I've never forgotten him. He's always been in my heart. The girls had a couple sad moments when we talked about Christmas and opening up gifts. Um, so the dynamic of our relationship didn't change, but there was another level of connection because we're getting older and we talked about relationships and really nurturing them and how important that is. And she's living in a house that was 5 generations in his family, and it will go to the girls. And there's a lot of deep history.
Right.
But she's got an amazing support system. In one of the pictures, you'll see a man with us, and he is actually their farmhand, but he's been with them, I want to say close to 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so like super connected, surrogate dad
Right.
in this. He's rescued her when her car breaks down, and he comes to the farm every morning for coffee, and they go
Aw.
over everything. So they have this great circle,
Oh, that's really
incredible
cute.
circle that they have.
Was that something that, like, okay, so the surrogate dad, that's so cute that they would call him that. Did you guys get along? Like, did you guys have a good visit?
Oh, he's a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
person.
That's so
He's
cute.
he's I met him at all my other visits.
Okay.
He's been a fixture in their life for so long that it
Right.
was like he just comes every morning at 7 a.m., I think, for
Oh, really?
coffee. So we just got up and had coffee together, and we would just shoot the shit.
Right. That's so cute. I love that. What was watching Izzy graduate like?
It was surreal.
Yeah.
Like you think about that moment, you know it's coming, but then it's really happening. Like when my kids graduated, it was pretty emotionally driven. This was a really weird mixture of pride. Like when I'm watching her get awards, I was watching Lindsay's face. Because
Right.
again, for that moment, it wasn't my moment, but it was amazing to watch them through this lens
Yeah.
of pride and joy and a little bit of probably sadness, missing knowing that, their dad isn't there. So it was a real combination. So I felt very honored to be able to be a part of something that is actually pretty sacred. It's a huge transition in a young person's life to be carrying on, and I got to be a little part of that again. So it was full circle,
Right. Yeah.
really full circle.
So you and Isabel talk lots. Like, would you say you talk every day?
Almost on Snapchat.
Yeah.
For a long time, I would get the most random pictures on Snapchat, like of their feet or a black wall or something. So I made it a rule, no blackout pictures just for streaks.
Right.
It had to be an actual picture of something. I don't care what it is. If you're doing homework, if you're cooking,
Right.
you're doing your laundry, take a picture of something. So that we've been doing that back and forth, like the pets, what we're doing, what the temperature is, what the time it is. Snapchat, you can do all different
Yeah.
kinds of things. Send each other filters. I send her more TikTok videos than she sends me, for sure.
That's okay.
Then I
Like,
might be addicted to TikTok, but it's still her fault. She introduced me to it in 2019, right before COVID, when we had the lockdown and TikTok really took off. So I went there for our wedding honeymoon, and we stayed at the farm. And she's like, "Auntie, do you know what TikTok is?" I'm like, "No." And so she added it to my phone. We did a whole TikTok dance. It was very awkward on my part.
we need to see this TikTok, Lorraine.
Yeah.
It is pretty bad. I will share it with you. I have shared my preteen photos that are pretty awkward. This video is pretty awkward, but it was fun.
At least you probably have a better haircut in the video.
Yeah, right.
That's funny. When we talk to surrogates, or when Maria talks to surrogates, and when we talk to
Sure, it
surrogates,
lives vicariously through
yeah.
me.
Oh, well, I have a few surrogates of my own now, but
Yes, you do.
yeah. But when we talk to them, it's more so about the pregnancy and the baby, and it's not really
Right.
about the preteen or the graduate or the 30-year-old that's having her own babies. Like, we don't really get to that part, right? And so for you to be there at the
Mhm.
graduate part, like, that's so cool. Like, we always talk about
It's
how
special.
we're giving somebody a baby, right? But you're giving somebody an entire life.
Yeah.
Like, it is
I
so cool.
have constantly said, like I've changed it because I was like, oh, you're growing these parents. No, you were doing way more than that.
Yeah.
You were truly changing lives for generations to come.
Yeah.
We have sisters, brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and now potentially her own children. She will become an aunt. She will
Yeah.
become a grandparent one day. Like it's it's limitless of
Right.
what the possibilities are for.
So I've seen it. I've seen a thing on Reddit that egg donor baby. Okay, that's my other question. I'm gonna jump to this one first.
Hmm.
Does Isabel know her donor? Like the
She
donor?
doesn't actually,
No.
from what I know.
Okay.
So her egg donor was known.
Right.
But I remember during the pregnancy, once I got pregnant, the egg donor kind of took a half step back and they kind of drifted away. And that's the last that I'd heard of it.
Right.
So I tried not to interfere or push that too much, but she does know the donor's name. Actually, Isabel's middle name is a blend of our two names. So
Ah.
I'm Lorraine, of course, and their egg donor was Lori. So her middle name is Laura, to honor the
Oh,
two of us.
That's so
that's so
cool.
So
precious. I love that.
yeah. So it wasn't that they didn't want her to know her. It
Right.
just, they drifted for whatever the reason may be.
Right.
Maybe she was young, maybe she just wasn't interested in being that connected. I don't know. Back then too, like until recently, known donations weren't highly done.
Yeah. No.
But there was contact. They do know each other in the sense, like not Isabel, but the family.
Right.
There was the initial contact. So I think that if there wanted to be in the future, it could.
I was reading this thing on Reddit and it was talking about it was like 4 or 5 different people who were egg donor and surrogate children who were
Hmm.
like anywhere from I think like 15 to 25 years old, and they were
Hmm.
talking about how like I don't know, I guess angry they were for their parents. Like it just seemed so silly to me, but for angry that they were a donor baby, and I just thought like how? Like you wouldn't have this incredible life if it wasn't for these people. Have you like not I'm assuming not Isabel, but
Yeah.
have you ever seen that Lorraine in anybody?
No,
No.
not an Isabel at
No.
all. Like her and I had a conversation about what it is to be a parent
Right.
when she was about 14, because it was this awareness like, oh, you gave birth to me, but you're not my mom, like
Right.
trying to kind of sort a little bit of that. And I said, sweetheart, the parent, your mom is the one person who is there to change your diaper, wipe your tears, take you to all your dance classes, who's been to every one of your school events and cheered you on for everything. That's what makes a parent.
Right.
I got to be a very small piece of your life in the big picture.
Right.
And you will always be important to me, and I will always be special, but like special to each other. But I'm more like an auntie. I'm your honorary auntie, and I love that I got to do that with you. And we talked about me how much I love her parents, and it was just Isabel has always been aware
Right.
that she was born by surrogacy. So actually, it was a little bit embarrassing but flattering. Every 2 minutes, as I was being introduced to somebody for each visit, this is Lorraine. She was the surrogate for Isabel. Like,
Right.
and everyone was like, really? And I'm
Aw.
like, yeah, hi.
Celebrity. I'm a
My
celebrity.
accent alone will take it away, but
Yeah.
here we go.
That's cute.
Because I asked Lindsay, I'm like, do I sound funny to you? She's like, oh, yes.
Yeah. That's
It
hilarious.
was funny being the misfit in that group. But it really, I wouldn't say that she has ever felt anger or anything. She's known she's always been loved.
Yeah.
Always.
I think that was more part of it that I was reading was that like a few of these people had been lied to or like not
Mhm.
told the truth. Like I do think that's so important. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to tell your children that, right? Like
And I think that's the biggest message that I've always given intended parents when I've
yeah.
worked with them is tell them the truth. Things have a way of coming out. They need to know that they can believe you.
Yeah.
They can trust you when you say the sky is blue and the grass is green.
Yeah.
That is the emphatic truth. Your parents moved heaven and earth to have you. They came
Yeah.
across the world, literally bringing together a donor, a surrogate, their dad, being there together as a team, and then, seeing this all the way through. that is a lot more than what most people have to go through to have their children. So
Yeah.
it's pretty special. I think that Isabel was fought for so hard.
Yeah.
And the proof in them living their life every day, just loving them and living for them
Yeah.
is validity to their commitment to their children. You know, uh, yeah, I think that when you feel lied to, you don't know what you can trust or not trust.
Yeah, totally. I think that's
You
why I
know,
always wanted to become a donor was because like how like I know how loved, most kids are, but how
yeah,
loved is a kid that is like, yeah, like you literally moved heaven and earth to have this baby. How much extra love do they get? Like
And I
it's
yeah,
just
think
different.
being a part of that story also makes you just that much more aware for your own.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah.
your own and
I do.
the kids that are in your life. I think once you have a really clear understanding of
Yeah.
what can be on the other side and how hard some have to fight for it, I think it does
yes,
make it more
It's easier to be
more
way more grateful.
yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun having a conversation with your 4-year-old, trying to explain to them how they were born compared to Isabel. Because, if you just explain to them that, the doctor put the baby inside of me
Yeah.
and now I'm going to grow it because her tummy's broken.
Right.
Okay, I got that. Well, how did I get in your tummy? And you're like, oh, awkward conversation. But I'm pretty literal. I walk them through sperm and egg. My two have known everything from the get-go.
Yeah.
It's it's getting harder to embarrass them. Like that was my revenge to my teenagers was
Yeah.
embarrass them.
But it
And
didn't
they were
work.
hard to
Yeah.
embarrass.
That's funny.
Oh yeah, no. One of the really magical moments was watching how Isabel and Caitlin interact with each other.
Right.
Being that they're lunar twins,
Yeah.
because they were 7 months apart, you know, they they're connected.
Right.
They do a she Isabel is very fierce about her sister and, just really accepting, and they're just friends and
Right.
sisters, and they drive together, they hang out, they, do videos. I've seen them all the time really living life together.
Right. That's so
They've been
special.
a family unit. And I mean, if you speak on a genetic level, they are half sisters
Right.
and they are sisters.
Yeah.
There is no doubt these two are sisters.
Yeah. Was that ever a thing where you were like, were you just excited or did you have any other kind of feeling when she told you that she was pregnant while you were about to give birth?
Oh, I was pissed.
Yeah.
Oh, I was super pissed.
Right.
I was like, I did this for what? You got pregnant. This
Yeah.
isn't special anymore. I might have been a little hormonal at that
Yeah.
time, but
Yeah.
I wrote it all down and I'm really glad I never gave it to her right away. Um, but yeah, I was really pissed
Yeah.
when I found out. And then I kind of pulled my head out of my butt. We actually talked about that actually very close to the time. And she said to me, Lorraine, I truly believe if you had not been pregnant, I wouldn't have relaxed and gotten pregnant myself.
Yeah. No, she
The
never
fact
would.
that we were now out of the danger stage, we were in the last 2 weeks before, and now I get pregnant, like it's finally
That's why.
maybe
Yeah.
I let go, and I couldn't have done it if you hadn't have been there. I've been doing this for 8 years. And she was preparing herself and me to expect to miscarry because
Right.
she had miscarried every other pregnancy.
Right.
And so then she got to carry it full term. And it was really fun to torment her and know that everything she was going through her.
Could you
Right.
imagine? I feel for her, like, oh, being like, first trimester pregnant and having a newborn, like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and to like for her own journey in motherhood, like the
she was exhausted.
To
I didn't
have.
even think about that until she
Yeah.
told me how sick she was traveling on the plane home with a newborn,
Yeah.
like,
a 20-hour
oh,
flight.
To have like regular twins, that's hard. But to have twins that are like a newborn to 7 months is so wildly different. Like, I cannot imagine.
Like, I
No.
have two of the families that I've helped have twins like that.
Irish twins.
Irish twins. Well, but Irish twins, I think, is considered 11 months, I thought.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyways, like, to have two
Yeah.
babies in a short period of time like that, but that are not the same age, like, Godspeed, man. That first 18 months, like, at 18 months, things start to, like, get a little closer and, like, level out a little bit more, like, Trip and Rin now are, you know, a lot more equivalent than they used to be, but, oh, man. And I think that really, I've talked about it a few different times with a few different people, primarily my mother. I think that really changes your journey in parenthood for those early years. And
I don't think you get to enjoy it as much.
No, my heart goes out to, like, yes, it's so exciting you get those kids, and in the long run, it doesn't matter. But, like, at that time, to want to hold your newborn and lay there with your newborn on your chest, and you just want to vomit that Subway you just had, like, that is...
Or your 18-month-old is either walking or whatever, and you have a 7-month-old that's still in it. Like, I don't know.
I feel for those people, because I think it really changes...
You miss things.
You miss
Yeah.
things, and I think it just changes your you're just in survival mode. And I mean, it's hard enough with one age, you know, all those things. It's hard enough. But, like, to be, you're just in survival mode, and I don't think you get to enjoy the little things as much when you're in survival mode and your tank is empty.
We do see a lot of intended parents that plan that, like, that plan to have two in the same year, and I just think, you're nuts.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, like, no, you're nuts.
I'm so glad I did not have to do. Yeah, my hat goes off to her, and it does explain, like, at first, you know, being a little bit hormonal postpartum, you know, I didn't hear from them a lot at the beginning when they first went home, and it's that princess to pauper. Do you remember having your own children, and during the whole pregnancy, oh, Jerry, you look beautiful. Oh, Maria, you know, you're just glowing. Okay, maybe not Maria, but
nobody said that to me either. Lorraine, I looked like a house.
Everyone's asking about you every 2 minutes. And then when that baby's born and they walk in the room and they push your face out of the way to get to the baby.
Yeah.
You don't exist. You don't have a name. Same kind of thing happens in surrogacy, and it isn't intentional. And it's remembering that they are just so lost in the wonder of counting the fingers and toes.
Yeah.
That they forget sometimes. So we do a lot of coaching with intended parents. You got to remember there was still this other person. Yes, be lost in the magic of counting those fingers and toes. But you got to remember that there's that other person that's still sitting there.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. And, like, it's so hard. Like, you don't want to ask for attention as a surrogate, but you deserve it. Like, yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. Princess to pauper. It's a real thing.
Your own circle matters so much in surrogacy, especially because for so many people, you know, you don't know your intended parents before this. This is a new relationship for you. Like, and you know what? Props to the girls who you know what, don't, because there are some that don't need that. Like, they've got it figured out in their own head. But, like, I do think it is so important for the ones that especially are more sensitive and more need that the circle, their own circle, also sees them and understands and can support them. Like, you know, you did this.
It can make people feel like they're being pushed aside.
Yeah.
And it's being able to have that perspective of realizing that isn't the case. And it's really hard, especially if you're going through postpartum and, you know, they've been all over you all leading up to the birth, and then all of a sudden you feel dropped off.
Right.
And this was the goal. And actually, really, this does correlate a lot with when my children left home.
Right.
You know, the goal is always to help them grow to leave home. But when they do, you're like lost.
Yeah.
You've lost your identity. You've lost your purpose. You've lost, like, what do you do with your time? How do you manage? And actually thinking about it, that's kind of how I felt after the birth. I felt very lost for over a year. My whole life was surrogacy.
Right. You also, like, you know, as we've talked about, the day 3 cry and all, like, the emotions and the things. And I think once you're not in that place, you can also step back and realize, like, holy, you know, this lady was pregnant, had a newborn, had to travel across the country and just became
Yeah.
parents. And like, let's be real, let's not judge anyone on the first, Jerry's got a 100-day parent rule for a reason.
It's the first 100 days of having a newborn, I called it the 100 days of hell.
like,
Like, yeah, it's beautiful and it's lovely and it's great, but it's also awful. You don't sleep. Like,
and
yeah.
your
It's
life
true.
has changed so much, and so like
Yeah.
these new parents are so excited and they're lost in the wonder, but they don't have sleep. They're not like, this is brand new.
Yeah.
They lie about so much on that parent pamphlet. Like,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
Some of
not
it
as advertised.
sucks. Yeah. Some of
Like,
it just sucks.
and I do
Like,
think it
Yeah.
is hard as
but
a
most of
surrogate,
it is really, really cool.
and there's a reason why we do it. And
Yeah.
but I do think that it is hard because you have two people. I mean, you have your intended parents and a surrogate, and two different sets of or two sets of emotions. Sorry, and two sets
Yeah.
of really different needs.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that in those moments, because it's such a high emotion moment for both. In some ways, it can be a struggle for both parties to meet the other person where they're at and to support them in the way they need, because maybe they can't even have it what they need for themselves, let alone give to someone else. And I think it's something that's very real about the journey, especially at the end and in those moments, because your intended parents were able to focus on you when there was no baby. You were the focus. You were the baby.
Oh,
Yeah.
every 2 seconds. How are you feeling? You
Yeah.
look beautiful. If I winced, is the baby coming? Like
Yeah.
it was every 2 seconds.
And then now they have this baby, and you're not cut off of that, but kind of. And it's a real wake up
It's just
call.
a change. It's
It's
just such a drastic,
harsh
quick change in the
is.
relationship. Yeah.
And just a harsh change for two different sets of people. Like, you go from being full-term pregnant to, your milk's coming in and your jeans don't fit and you're just
Yeah.
crying all the time. And these new intended parents are also
Wearing
probably
your
crying all the
diaper
time.
and you just feel everything,
Yeah.
unsexy, unwanted, and it's the furthest thing from the truth. Like,
Yeah.
when I got to spend some time, so I did hop around to see some of the other intended parents in Australia, and it was the most adorable thing to listen to them. I sat back and they bragged about their surrogate. My surrogate is the best surrogate. This is what
Aw.
she did. And then someone else is like, well, my egg donor, she is incredible. And we have this amazing relationship. And I can't wait to meet my surrogate. And like they were bragging and whipping out
Aw.
pictures. And I died laughing because I said to them, I want you to know that as surrogates, we typically don't share photos of our own children, but you will see us all whipping out our phone, showing off our surrogate baby.
Yeah.
And they started laughing. They're like, really? I'm like, did I show you one picture of my children? No, I showed you a picture of Isabel and I at grad.
Yeah.
That's what I showed you. And it's this funny competition. But yeah, it was so cool to listen to intended parents talk about how amazing the individual was that came to the table to help them, their egg donor, the process they've been through, and then transitioning over to the surrogate and still being connected, because that's one thing that I'm really proud of, that that we've grown together, because you guys helped us launch our egg donor program. We
Right.
had something, but it was really small. And then Maria, you took it and you just made it explode. You did the babies to, bracelets to baby program, and people talk about that. They were talking about that at the event, about how they got their bracelet, and then the other parents were like, oh really, I get that too. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to all come together, and talked about the story about that and reminded them too to plant the seed that remember the postpartum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And remember you're dating a woman. So like,
Right.
because a lot of them were same-sex couples at this particular party, and I'm like, you're dating a woman.
Yeah.
You got to
Totally.
remember this part.
I think
So
that's so, like, such a thing, though, to have the gift of time to see it back. Like, when you're in the trenches of postpartum, especially, like, they could be being great to you, but you're in postpartum. Like, you're not, it wouldn't
Not
matter
reset.
how they showed up. It's never going to be perfect, right? So I think just having that, yeah, being able to see it back and say, oh, you know what, they weren't that bad, or, you know what, maybe they were. But they were in the trenches too, right? So,
yeah,
yeah.
it's being able to have that reflective moment, and it's not
Yeah.
easy when you're in it.
No.
So it's always easy to step back and have that 2020.
Yeah. Well, and then
Yeah.
and then in 6 months when everyone is feeling their self again, like completely or
Mm.
mostly, then you can start having that bigger relationship again, which is really cool.
Yeah.
It was really nice to be able to have that opportunity talking to the intended parents too about not rushing to go home,
Right.
because as much as you want to sleep in your own pillow, be a core,
Mm-hmm.
just you're not worrying about work, you're not worrying about chores, you don't have to fix anything,
Yeah.
you're not walking your dog, you're just being. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, that's magical. I'm like, yes, take it.
Yeah. It really is.
Thank you so much for unwinding. And I think this was a really important conversation to have and to be able to share
Mm-hmm.
with others, with intended parents, with surrogates, and with egg donors. Like, I think it's really, really relatable, and I think it's
Yeah.
really cool to have such a, like we talked about, it's not closure because it's a whole life. But
Yeah.
I think to
Yes.
talk about, how a surrogate felt at her surrogate baby's graduation. That's not a conversation you get to have every day, and that's so
Yeah.
amazing. And I
No,
think that that's
no, I
really
didn't even know what to
important.
expect.
I
Yeah.
think it's so important.
It's just so cool. Yeah, like I said, it's not just about the baby. It's about the 25-year-old and the one day she'll be 60. You know.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very cool. But we don't want to take up your whole day, Lorraine, and I'm sure
I love my time with you guys, so thank you.
We love
yeah,
our time with you too. I think that we could have this go on a long time.
yeah.
But
But
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Karen's making us something to eat, so we have to go.
Okay, I'm gonna go talk to my kids and get their timeline straight.
Yeah, there you go.
go for a little mama spanking.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you,
visiting
Lorraine.
with us today,
All right, you
Lorraine.
guys.
Have a good
Mwah.
one.
Bye bye.
We'll see you
Bye.
guys later. Bye.